to imagine all life as you know it stopping instantaneously and every molecule in your body exploding at the speed of light.
Total Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal.
Protonic Reversal with your host, Conan Neutron. Broadcasting from a secret underground lair in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
A gigantic middle finger to everything that is rock about music, rock and roll, and corporate power.
The thing is, though, if you don't laugh, you're going to go on a killing spree with sharpened nails.
Confidence of a hero or a fool, I wasn't exactly certain which.
Could not be more professional.
It's only one I choose to devote my life to. That's okay.
It means something. It means something.
And take that away.
You know, that's my take on it. What's yours?
Protonic Reversal!
That's like a science thing, right?
Indeed. It is a science thing. It is a science place. It is a scientific fact. We are all up in your face. It is time for the one, the only Protonic Reversal. Welcome to it, episode 201. I actually interrupted the end of the 200th episode to introduce the second decade, I guess this would be, of Protonic Reversal, if episodes were years. And believe me, some of them feel like they are. But some of them don't. And I'm very excited to be joined by a very awesome, very talented young man, young up-and-comer, Mr. Christopher Williams of plasticflamepress, maplestave, and the Operative on Radio Nope. Chris, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
For those that are not me, Chris is very well dressed. He's dressing for success, and I appreciate that. I appreciate someone. Well, I put on my finest Captain America shirt, so I hope you appreciate that.
Well, it's after 6. What am I, a farmer?
And I'm surprised it took me this long to have you on. I mean, I'm not surprised because I forget obvious stuff all the time, but you're a guy that does a lot, and as a fellow dude that does a lot, game respect game.
Yeah, it's the what was the name tag that I would wear around the alternate timeline Conan Neutron?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, that's to say nothing of the music stuff, the screen printing, the comic books, and then I think the least known of your ventures is probably the Operative, and that's, I guess, one of the reasons why we're here. It's an interesting show. So this is an interview style show, but can you tell us a little more about it, just to kind of set the mood for what people can expect if they're going to listen in?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk to people, like my bandmates. You know, we being in vans together, being in practice every week, like we'll have conversations about bands that have really meant a lot to us, and I realized that it's not always a conversation that you end up having with a lot of people that you know, and especially with people that you don't know. So I just I got kind of interested to find out what bands sort of motivated people to make music, and or in some cases, like my buddy JT that I talked to in the first season, he's a poster artist, and to talk to him about Widespread Panic, which was this band that has like meant so much to him. He went from making like bootleg T-shirts and stuff and selling them in the parking lot of Widespread shows to being
right, like
artists.
To actually working with them, like
yeah,
which is that's such a they're considered a jam band, right? I mean, that's
I think so. Yeah, but
I never know. Some people get really upset. There's not a jam.
Well, that's we talk about it in the episode.
You did talk about that. I don't remember where it landed though.
It's it's kind of a Yeah, it's. I believe that it fell that like Fish is more of a jam band, which prior to doing any research for that episode, I just assumed that Fish and Widespread were like one and the same, and they're not. So that's the other thing for me is that like I'm not familiar with a lot of the bands that people want to talk about, and so it gives me an opportunity to seek out some of the music and to listen to it too.
So I think, and it's interesting that, yeah, like one of the hooks for the show is that it's about somebody who you like and respect enough to have on the show, talking about something that is influential to them. An artist that's influential to them. And that seems to manifest in a bunch of different ways. For some people, it's like, oh, here's my favorite band. For some people, it's like, oh, here's, something that, I like this band. It started this professional relationship, et cetera, et cetera. Like the applications for that are actually pretty unique in the fact that there wouldn't necessarily be like one answer or like one story to get there.
Right, and that's like when I talked to you and we talked about Nick Cave, and it became it wasn't just that Nick Cave's music meant something to you. It was the way that Nick Cave's work ethic helped influence you, and someone
the big swings and the big misses too. Like I'm just as like oh well, that didn't connect at all for me, but. Hey, that's awesome.
I talked to someone in one of the new episodes about how Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, influenced her to want to get into musical theater, and now she's been in a band for 10 years up in New York, and so.
Yeah, and it occurs to me that if that has been done too, if that particular almost rhetorical hook might be the way to put it has been done, it's certainly not been done in this way. And
you mean poorly, right?
No, I mean I was going to say thoughtfully.
This is my performance review. This is my radio note performance review.
So I'm going to mark you as needs improvement on the promotional angle, but
we renewed you for 10, but we're going to have to see how the first 5 fly. And
exactly. We're a very busy station. It's our primary concern, as well as making sure the hard drive doesn't run out of space.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, it does strike me that it is an interesting hook, because anything where, like, let's say, because for the most part, most of the artists you have, whether they're musicians, whether they're visual artists, whatever, they're not necessarily going to be household names, but there can be an avenue into someone discovering this person by like, oh, they're talking about, such and such band. Cool, I like that band. Let's see what this is all about. Yeah. And then you get idiots like me that like just barely even talk about it and just end up like talking about themselves and their mental problems. But like it is something where it's the tie-in to the art itself. I think is very interesting. And again, hearing the different paths and stuff along those lines, and the fact that you got some part twos, but you tie it into like a half-hour episode. Now, did you decide to keep that format a half hour for a specific reason?
It seemed like it was easier to try and do that. I don't like doing a lot of editing work, so I did a podcast for a while with my cousin, the Comics in the Golden Age podcast, and we had lots of editing that we would have to do with the conversation and doing music in the background and stuff like that, and it took a lot of time. For every hour-long episode, it meant like 2 or 3 hours of post-production, and it's like, oh, okay, that's a little much.
Yeah, I testify because I despise editing, and that's one of the reasons why I don't. And that's one of the reasons why I just forced myself to get good at, for better or for worse, being the guy and doing the thing that the show is and be comfortable with that. And also for me, it gets the live feel. But but it almost seems like, to me, getting it down to a half hour, it seems like that would cause more editing problems to me.
It causes more editing problems because to kind of bring it in to exactly a half an hour, I have well, there you go. I don't know if it's a speech impediment or a stutter or whatever, but I say a whole lot. So
the ums and uhs, yeah.
So
the hell that is editing, I discovered on ums and uhs, especially when it's people like, it's like, wow, Sure do say a lot.
I know what that waveform looks like, and so I just go through.
You can just recognize the waveform by sight. That's amazing. I love that. But it makes sense. It makes sense. Yeah.
I see those. I cut those out, and it's like, oh, cool. It's exactly half an hour.
So it turns out there was 15 minutes of just ums and uhs. So that's, hey, it all worked out okay. Well, and again, not to put too fine a point on it, but you're an artist yourself, both musically and as a visual artist. So you're not coming at this from a perspective of someone without your own personal experiences and context for all of it. So the criteria for being on the show, like how do you decide who you're going to have on?
I've made a list of people that I would like to talk to. Some of them are people that I'm closer friends with. Some of them are people that I either have listened to their music or their podcasts, or I've done work with them in the past, like through posters or something. Yeah. And just people that I'd like to talk to. And for the most part, I've had luck just reaching out and saying, "Hey, do you want to do this? It'll take like 45 minutes."
Yeah, I mean, well, especially now, like, what are people doing?
Yeah, exactly.
That's I've used that as well. When people are like, wow, you get some amazing guests. I'm like, yeah, everyone's home.
Yep.
Like, it helps that the show's good, but everyone's home. I mean, it's anybody that was like, well, I don't know. It's like, you're really, really busy pointing the laser pointer for the cat. Like, I mean, what? No, people will have time, and also it's an interesting hook too. If you talk to someone that is very eager to talk about like their favorite band, or if there's a specific story that's no one asked about that ties into their own particular story. I mean, that's something that someone's going to be like, great, yeah, let's talk about that. I can't wait to talk about, X, Y, and Z. That's going to be awesome. And it's something that it ties into the music fan of the artist, I guess, is what I'm driving at. And I guess for me, I personally find disdainful shows that kind of treat artists as if it's, aliens, Cowboys versus aliens or whatever, where it's ideally an artist should be a fan of other art. Right. And music as well. I mean, sometimes you got to wonder, but
I mean,
it's ideally,
it's totally a stars are just like us sort of situation.
What is it? Hollywood stars. What do they know, and when did they know it? What's the bit? Wait, no, that's when did they know it? That's like Senate testimony.
Whoa, yeah. but I mean, it's cool because there's. I mean, with some of the people that I've talked to now that I'm not as close with, to hear about their experiences and their experiences being musicians, how they came to be musicians, and then to talk to some people that I've known for a decade and to hear new stories, just because this is something that has never come up. Like John Hasty and I talk about Naked Ray Gun. And we've never, in 10 years, we've never talked about Naked Ray Gun.
It never happened to come up, yeah.
Right, but Naked Ray Gun is a very important group to him. So. Sure. But he ends up talking about Red Hot Chili Peppers and stuff.
as one does. There's some things that if you know the person, it's like, oh, DJ did Brainiac. That's like the least surprising thing in the world. But it's also like he's coming at it from this place of extreme fandom, and it's like such an important part to his personal story.
Well, and that was one that he said, yeah, I want to talk about Brainiac, and for whatever reason, like I was familiar with Brainiac, and of course I'm familiar with Hi-Fi and Body Features, and he said, oh, I want to talk about Brainiac. And I was like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, of course you do. Yeah, why?
But I never like had put the two together. Like, oh, he probably listens to Brainiac. Oh, yeah. So
I think it's a strong possibility that guy might like Brainiac. Yeah. But they are such a formative band for him, and he speaks with such enthusiasm and heart about it that it's contagious enthusiasm. And that tends to come across in the show in all its many manifestations. You know, I really I enjoyed Dylan from God Eaters talking about Leonard Cohen and stuff like that. That was fascinating. Again, and one of the least surprising things in the world, Chris Rasmussen talking about Silkworm. It's like, well, you played in a Silkworm tribute band with the host of the show, so this makes sense.
I did tell him
this tracks.
When we went into that one. I was like, this is going to be a longer episode because we're just going to go ahead and get out of the way. Like Silkworm is my favorite band too, so.
Yeah, but it also, and again, it's coming from a place of speaking from the heart and from genuine enthusiasm for these artists and bands in general, that I think even if you didn't know those bands and you were listening to the show, that would get over. That would come across. And that's kind of, for my money, that's sort of where my metric is how much do you want to listen to the show if it isn't something you already know about? Mm-hmm. And for most shows, it's not at all for me. But but there's definitely been ones where I'm like, all right, let's see. I can't wait to hear what this what's this going to be like. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's in the more digestible half-hour format instead of a long-form one like this show, it makes it a lower buy-in to do that, and it makes it a little more welcoming. And that's something that I don't know if that's planned out, but it definitely it comes off prepared and enthusiastic, but not necessarily like, all right, strap in. Right. For the audio listeners, I just mimed a seatbelt.
Yeah, well, and the thing is too, like I love lots of longer podcasts. Like I listen to yours, I listen to Barrage. There's Never Not Funny is a comedy podcast I listen to. So I like longer form podcasts, but then I also like my brother has a podcast, Will and Matt Ninja Rap that's their current season where they're discussing the Ninja Turtle films, and that's
and the name of it's called Ninja Rap.
Yeah, yep.
That's
but
a good one. That's good.
It's but it's like 30-45 minutes, and so it's like I can do that. I can go out for a walk or something like that and knock that out. So
yeah, and it's something where, you know, like I said, it gets over, and that's. It doesn't sound like you're enraptured with the sound of your own voice. And that's good.
Oh God, no, I'm not.
Yeah, because there's some shows where it's like, oh, this should be great, but boy, it sounds like everyone's just very delighted to hear themselves speak right now, and that's
Marin. Are you talking about anybody?
No. I'm actually not. I'm just talking about just talking. It's just a pet peeve in general, and yeah, I gotta watch myself on some of this stuff, But it's a good show, and I do hope that more people check it out. So, and you've got a Facebook page for it. You can subscribe for it for free, as well as it's going to. We're not wrapping up the show, by the way, but we're going. It airs on this night live, which is Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern, every week, so people can tune in, hear the new episodes there, and that's your slot, and that's something where. I think this is something people can just tune in and be like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. And it works as a live show as well, even though they're pre-recorded. And again, that's something that not every show can do. And one of the reasons why is because it moves along fairly quickly, sometimes unpredictably, but it doesn't drag or deviate. No one's in love with the sound of their own voice. You know, it crosses the T's. It dots the I's. It does the thing.
Yeah, I just want I try to tell people that I'm gonna start the episode and kind of prompt you to start talking, but then I'm gonna try and get out of the way as much as possible, just to let you talk about whatever you want to talk about. So.
Well, and it's interesting because some people approach things from a more. Discography-oriented angle, or like very almost mechanically minded, and for some people it's just more, I like it because it makes me feel this way.
Right.
Or and some people it's like, hey, this artist was a key part of multiple parts of my life, and here's those parts of the life. So it's sort of like the essay question.
Yeah. Well, and
Thing, right?
the interesting part, or one of the interesting parts for me, is how many people I've talked to that have said, like, oh yeah, this band means so much to me, but it's this album, and after this album, I didn't listen to them. Yeah. And so things like that it's like, yeah, a band can really, music is really important. Music can certainly define things about you and change things about your life. And like I was saying with Marie Anderson from this band Reformed Horrors that I talked to this season, she talks about Jonathan Larson, who wrote Rent, but Jonathan Larson died before Rent premiered.
Right.
Jonathan Larson didn't do anything else. But that was enough of an impetus to kind of define what she wanted to do with the rest of her life, what she's done for the past 20 years. So.
Yeah, and that's kind of that aspect of it sort of being was it a tabula rosa? Is that what's the name of what's that term where they can project their experiences and kind of and form it into their own thing is kind of what makes it interesting to me. And do you ever put any criteria on it, other than you probably don't want any repeats, right?
That's luckily I have not. I've not gotten anyone that's wanted to talk about a band that we already talked about. That's the other problem with I'll talk to someone and they're like, "Oh, I'd really like to be if you do another season, I'd really like to talk to you," and it's like as it goes on, it was one thing.
Be more and more hard.
Yeah. It was one thing when it was 8 episodes, and now with 2 seasons, it's going to be 18 episodes, and it's like,
yeah.
Oh no! Yeah.
Someone's gonna get stuck with prong eventually.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, the thing about prong,
we already talked about Ministry, so if you want to talk about lard, then...
right. Exactly. Yeah. But I mean, by the same token, it also maybe can make people think harder about the kind of thing that what actually something means to them and why it means that.
Well, and also I'd be interested to see too, maybe to go back to or do the same band again to see how one person's experience with the band differs from someone else's. So
yeah. I mean, you could probably have someone else do something on Led Zeppelin and it will come out very different than that episode. Yeah. I'm sure if you got
season 3 is just going to be people talking about Nick Cave. So
right. Well, and that's I almost when I was thinking about it, I had a moment of wow, I bet someone was really annoyed that I was the one that got Nick Cave, and then
no, and see that's the thing.
I can't believe he trashed on Push the Sky Away.
That's so when I talked to George about Led Zeppelin, he was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. I was like, no. You picked Led Zeppelin, we're talking Led Zeppelin. And then I talked to John Huston this season about someone, and he was like, oh, I shouldn't pick this band. And I was like, yes, you should. If that's the band that you thought of, yes, we should totally talk about that band. So he talks about Nonagon. It's weird.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
About how much he hates Nonagon. And
it's the first all negative episode of all of them. It's very strange. You wouldn't expect it.
It started him down a path to try and be a better band, and it's that whole Nonagon stomatopod beef that they talk about.
It's like these dicks. Pretty much 22 minutes of these dicks. And of course, you're no stranger to music yourself. You play I would assume that most people listening are familiar, but if for not, you play in the excellent band Maplestave, which has been around for, I was thinking about it, quite a while now. It's been... now...
Is
it 10?
No, we've been around 17 years.
Oh my God! Yeah, that's That's astounding. And of course, there's Andy lived on the West Coast for a while, which I know very well. And it's not that you've been active at the same level during all of those years. There's been sort of like leaner years and
but I like
we're busy years.
But we were talking about I think when Andy lived on the other coast, I think we still managed to practice more than we have managed to practice in the last 6 months. Andy would fly back with his guitar, and he would be back for like 3 or 4 days, and we would practice, and we would send songs back and forth. But yeah, that's kind of we haven't been able to. We're planning to do something soon. In a couple weeks, we're trying to work some stuff out so we can do something. But
well, it's almost like there's a different level of engagement when someone's like flying in. To do it. It's like, okay, well, I guess we got to do this. That's it. So, wow, 17 years. Because the first one, the plane one, the one with the incredibly long title, that's the one that, October 2010. The like rain freezing and thawing between bricks year after year, this house will come down. That's the first one that came to my attention.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we started putting out EPs in 2005, I think. 2005 or 2006. So we put out 3 EPs, cleverly titled EP1, EP2, and EP3. And then for the full length,
Eponymous 3.
And then for the full length, then we put on the longest Achewood quote that we could find, and
just to make up for all the times you didn't.
Yeah.
You kept the terse, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then I guess 2016 was our the album came out. So
it's a long time to be a band, and honestly, I like the band and listen to the band. I didn't even realize it had been that long. But then also, I guess I was kind of. Internet was different then, and I was pretty busy myself. So I mean, but
I think we all agree it's been long enough, right? So.
I mean, it's enough, right?
You did it. I mean, you did some stuff.
Well, but here's the thing: like that one that came out, I think you just called it 5, right? The one, the airplane one.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the other one's airplane one too. So
I think they all have airplanes on them in some way, shape, or form. No, EP2 doesn't. No, EP1 doesn't either. Not all of them have airplanes.
There's enough airplanes, though, that it's like saying, the self-titled Risk Reward record.
Yeah.
So, and that's a great record. I mean, it seems like that's a record that does not. It both does and does not sound like a band that's been together that long. But then also. It seems like maplestave got more vocal about vocals as time went on, and was that sort of a concerted, planned activity, or was that something that kind of seemed like a little more of a natural progression? Because it seemed to me like it became a little more serious about vocals in later days. Man, that's just coming out from the perspective of a listener, so I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I don't know that it was intentional. Sometimes we'll write things, and like right now we have, I don't know, God, it's weird. It's been forever since we practiced. I think we have like 7 songs that aren't recorded, something like that. And there's just some of them that we start writing, and I just write a part that's like, oh, that's a little too complicated for me to do anything with, so I'm just not going to sing in this song. So, yeah.
So there wasn't like a concerted effort of like, well, this one will be the one with the vocals, and this one.
No,
it's just more from a pragmatic standpoint of what goes where.
Yeah, because I'm not I guess I'm an okay guitarist, so But I sometimes I'm not good enough to play and sing at the same time. I'm like, oh, I'll do this cool noodly bit, and it's like, oh, well, great. Now I can only do that. So
You pick noodles over vocals, huh?
yeah. Oh, anytime, yeah.
How did the instrumentation come to pass? And the reason I ask is because I'm always fascinated by bands that have baritone. How that came to be a thing that happens, and how that like sits together with everything, how the songwriting works, stuff along those lines.
So the let me figure out the shortest way to tell this. So originally it was I played guitar, Andy played bass, and then but Andy, Evan, and I were playing in a band called The Exchange, and with Evan playing guitar, Evan and Andy were playing guitar, I was playing bass, and our friend Tom was playing drums, and then we had a friend of ours, Rob, playing bass in maplestave before Andy was part of it. Basically, Rob dropped off, Tom dropped out of The Exchange. We decided, oh, we'll just merge it into maplestave, and then so I was playing guitar, Andy was playing bass, Evan's playing drums. But Andy wanted to start playing some guitar, and so he he has a Rickenbacker, so he started writing some guitar parts, and so it would be 2 guitars and drums. And then for his birthday one year, we had seen that they had one of those Epiphone, like, goth style matte black baritone guitars at Guitar Center, and so we got that for him, and so that helped out with the low end. And then he ordered an electrical, and after he got that and I played it, I was like, oh, I want an electrical. So, and I'd been switching off between guitar and using his old baritone.
Yeah.
So it just sort of ended up like, yeah, I think originally the idea was that I would switch back and forth, and then once I got my electrical baritone, it's like, no, I don't really need anything else. So.
Yeah. Did you find that it was like, well, this is the one I like to play? Was it more okay? I mean, hey, you're preaching to the choir on this one, buddy. I get it. So it was more just okay. So that's interesting. So. But the idea was you would kind of go back and forth originally, and then it was sort of like,
Yeah,
well,
like I when I was the bands I was in high school and college, when I started playing music, I was really into Sonic Youth, and so the guitars would be in different tunings, and that kind of carried all the way through to maplestave, and so. I would.
Were you like, you know what I would love is to have more upkeep for all of these guitars?
Yeah,
and,
exactly. Yeah.
More things to remember.
Yeah, cool. Well, the input on this one's a little messed up, and then the pickup on this one's kind of messed up, and so
we could make this more complicated. Yeah. That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's like,
sorry, please go ahead.
Oh no. So yeah, when I could just kind of do everything I wanted on one guitar. Then it's like, oh, okay, cool. I don't need to switch anymore. It takes less time when we're on stage. Don't have to like end a song and put down a guitar, pick up another guitar, tune that guitar, because these aren't top of the line guitars that I'm buying, so they're all going out of tune.
You look at them funny and it drops out of tune. Yeah.
Yeah. The funny enough, the Sam Ash hollow body that I have doesn't keep tune very well. So. Yeah.
When did you start in with the? I don't even know how you described it, but the guitar strap, the waist strap situation.
That was a couple of years ago. I had done that, like, like I had seen Shellac play several times, and I knew that Steve Albini did that, and I had done it a couple times over the years, just on a lark, just to see how it worked out, and my right shoulder is kind of messed up, so anything I can do to like try and take some of the weight off
yeah
feels better. So I did that, and I got out of practice or whatever, and was like, I'm not in pain, so let me try this again. And then I found that one of the great things about it that I hadn't even thought about beforehand was that when the guitar is like strapped to you like that, the guitar, you always know where it is. So the like getting to the third fret, like I know where the third fret is. It's not like the third fret's gonna be like down by my knee. Yeah. So it's like everything's always right there. So it actually makes it easier to play the guitar. So, and yeah, if I can find an easier way to do anything, apparently that's what I'm gonna do.
Well, trust me, buddy, it's better than doing the other way around. That's from experience. So when what was your path to playing in the first place? What got you playing music in the first place? What got you playing guitar? And what did that path look like towards playing in bands? I wanted to be in bands back when I was in middle school, and that was like I think right around when so that was like early 90s, like 91, 92. And then my parents had bought me a Harmony classical guitar. I tried to learn how to use that on my own. I couldn't even figure out where it said like I was supposed to play on certain frets, and so I thought you had to play on the physical frets. And I was like, "Oh, this sounds terrible." I'm not cut out for this at all. This doesn't sound good.
Yeah, I was like, "This Stone Temple Pilots song is not working out." So when I got to high school, I met this guy Carlton, who he was into Sonic Youth, and we started talking. We decided we'll be in a band, but we knew like I couldn't just be the singer. I was like, well, I want to learn how to play guitar. So Christmas in '94, my parents bought me and my brother electric guitars and got us guitar lessons. So I was I was going to guitar lessons with this guy John Firesheets, who was a blues jazz musician.
That's a tough name.
And
that's awesome.
I know that he won't hear this, but man, that dude was such a badass. And I go in, he's got long hair pulled back in a ponytail, and he has just sleeves of tattoos. Mm-hmm. And he was the coolest dude. And I would show up to the lesson, and he's like, well, what do you want to talk about today? And I'm like, I'm kind of sad about my girlfriend. And he's like, let's talk about girls. I'm like, okay. And he's like, and I'm going to send you home with some scales, okay? And
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, did that inform the lesson? Did that inform, well, I'm going to teach you some blues chords so you can express your feelings? Like, what?
I think he kind of felt like if he pushed me too hard, then I just wasn't going to learn anything. And so he's
Gotcha.
like, let me kind of try and talk to you on your level, and then we'll, when you leave, you'll feel like, oh, hey, okay, yeah, sure.
Right, exactly.
So I was learning all the more of the theory stuff from him, but then I would go to band practice, and it's like, oh, let's tune our guitars to G G D D B B and learn how to play sugarcane, and so I was like learning how to play guitar in practice or in lessons, but then like learning a totally different approach in band practice. So yeah, that was kind of it. I just wanted to I wanted to be in a band like Sonic Youth for a while, and then of course got into like Sebado and Guided by Voices. And all of those things sort of informed the idea of songs don't need solos at all.
Right.
And as I got more into Guided by Voices, it was like they don't even need like a second verse. So
Right, it changes the idea of what you think of as a song when you hear a band like that, right? I mean, it's like, well, that's the best thing I've ever heard. It just makes me want to hear the whole record over again. So why not do that?
And that was the weird thing. It was like this weird, like sort of roller coaster ride of like, going to one extreme with a band like Guided by Voices, where it's a 30-second, verse, chorus, in and out song. And then going all the way to something like Polvo, and I really got into June of '44, and totally different, like 7-minute songs with all these intricate parts, and then I think that's like eventually like in there was when I discovered Silkworm, and I was like, oh, this is a band that I can never be, but this is. To me, this is the quintessential like rock band, and this is like if I was plucked out of the time stream or something, and they're like, well, you get to be in one band, and you can't jump all over the map. You can't like write a Guided by Voices song and then a Polvo song. What are you gonna do? It's like, no, I'm just gonna go for Silkworm. Let me do that.
It's a very specific act of chrono-terrorism. But...
yeah, people need to watch out for that.
Yeah, it's good to be prepared. Have your answer prepared. So, you mentioned Polvo. Were you keenly aware of things that were happening locally, that were around you?
That's I would go over to. I grew up mostly in Greensboro, which is about an hour or so away from Chapel Hill. So I would go over to Chapel Hill once I was able to drive, and once my friends had driver's license. We'd go over to shows all the time, and usually at Cat's Cradle, and so yeah, I would get to see. A lot of the bands. The weird part is that by the time I got into Polvo was around when it was actually when Shapes came out, because the first thing I heard was Enemy Insects on the radio when it was like this thing just came into the office. It's this new Polvo
sounds like this.
Yeah, and that
was the one with Walsby on drums. Actually, if I remember.
Yep. So yeah,
rock post rock. That's a good record.
Yeah. I feel like that's a underappreciated record, but so they were sort of on their way out, and I had also gotten into Archers, but Archers were not quite as active, and it was in this in between time of All the Nation's Airports and White Trash Heroes. And so I didn't I could go see Superchunk because Superchunk were, they were
around and doing stuff. Yeah,
exactly.
They were active.
but Archers and Polvo not so much. So the only time that I got to see Archers and Polvo were at their last shows, which I think were 98, 99. So Polvo was when right before I graduated high school, and then Archers was after I'd gone to college. But the only time that I got to see them, I got to see the last two Polvo shows and the last two Archers shows.
Oh man!
So,
well, I guess at least you got to see them.
And I mean, I got to round out the Archers shows talking to Eric Bachman and Matt, and so that that was pretty cool. But
so what were your takeaways from those bands, and what did you learn from them, or what inspired you with those bands specifically?
Well, I think it was probably just the general. I don't know. Through middle school when I started getting into music, I think I was like a lot of kids that I at that time, or in the very beginning of the 90s, I didn't totally get into stuff like the hair metal stuff or whatever coming out of the 80s, but I really got into Guns N' Roses, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and so when I started like deciding, I want to be in a band, like that was the first thing that kind of hit me. And but then right behind that was was like Nirvana and Pearl Jam, and so it was like this. It feels like a very interesting time for me because like there was like a stretch of, and I might mess up the chronology here, but there was a stretch of like 1 to 2 years where it's like I've got Guns N' Roses, Paula Abdul, the new Aerosmith record,
Right. Is that'd be Eddie Furlong era? Aerosmith? Yeah. Okay.
And Richard Marx's Rush Street, but I've also got like Pearl Jam 10, and I've got the Lithium single, and so I've just like got this like I don't know, and of course like the best stuff of that kind of rose to the top, and then it's the sort of standard thing where it's like, oh, okay, hey, look, Nirvana's on Saturday Night Live. Oh, hey, he's wearing a Beat Happening shirt. What's Beat Happening? Oh, they're on Pay Records. Oh, okay.
Right.
And then, I'm digging through my junk drawer to get enough change to order stuff from the Sub Pop catalog, which I remembered a couple of weeks ago that I was talking to someone and remembered that I ordered away for the Sub Pop catalog, got it, and my grandmother helped me roll a bunch of change that I had. So,
like the quarter rolls and penny rolls and stuff.
And she's like, "We'll do this, and then I'll take it over. We'll exchange it, and you can order away stuff from the Sub Pop catalog." And so,
please tell me it was cat butt.
No, it's better.
Okay.
I went through and like I got like a couple T-shirts and stuff, and Sub Pop 200, but then at the very end, she was like, "Oh, okay, well you've got like I think whatever $10 or $12 left," and so of course I got to spend that on something, and so I went through, and I was like, "Oh." The only thing it looks like I can afford is this Dwarves CD. And so I had to sit there when I'm like, 12 or 13 with my grandmother, like physically filling out the Sub Pop form where I'm like, yeah, it says Dwarves, blood, guts, and pussy. And she was like, okay, and we put it in an envelope and mailed it. And, yeah. So, yeah, okay.
That's like almost like akin to being in the room with a parent when like a sex scene comes on in a movie or something where it's like so what's gonna happen when we get to this word? Okay. Killer Dwarves record though. And that's probably the best Dwarves record, I think.
13 minutes and 13 seconds. Mm-hmm.
My one and only time I saw Dwarves with Red Ants, they took 20 minutes to come out, played the first 3 or 4 songs without guitar. He Who Cannot Be Named just wasn't on stage. Then He Who Cannot Be Named kind of wandered out, plugged his guitar in, starts playing. They get through 2 songs, got into a fight on stage, and left. Yeah. And the whole thing was like maybe 11 minutes, and they were headlining this show too. And people were furious. They were, especially because it was at the Trocadero, and they did this thing where they just put 5 bands on the bill. It was just ridiculous. So people waited all night to see them, and. Yeah, He Who Cannot Be Named was even out there for half of the set, and then they got into a fight, and was it real or theatrics? Who knows? At the time, I was pissed, but as I was on my hour-and-a-half bus ride home, I was like, you know what? That might have been awesome. Now that I think about it, and that's where I was sort of like, oh, maybe there's more to it. Maybe they're not, because I was like, oh, those dicks. I was like, oh, maybe they're maybe that's a thing that they do.
Yeah.
Maybe they're being jokers about this or something. I don't know. And I started thinking about it. And anyway, that's a story about the Dwarves. How'd you start screen printing?
I started screen printing.
When and how? What started that?
When I started, during the times that I would go down to Cat's Cradle in Carborough. I say Chapel Hill, but it's Cat's Cradle is in Carborough.
Only true heads will know.
Yeah. So I went down and I'd known through the art rock catalog. I had seen stuff by Kozik and Art Chantry, and then like going to the Cradle, I learned about Ron Liberty, and who's from the band Pipe, and Casey Burns. They both did art for the Cradle, and I met Casey and he gave me one of his prints for the last Polvo show.
Nice.
And and so I kind of decided, like, oh, okay, this is what I want to do. Like, I see all this work and it's really cool, and I think it's something that I'm really interested in. So I went to college, sat down at the orientation session in the art department because I decided I'll be an art major. They went around the room, asked, hey, what does everybody like to do or want to do? And people are like, oh, I want to do clays, I want to do oils, whatever. And I'm the last one. And I said, I want to make posters for bands. And was it like a record scratch? Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it was the head of the department.
Say
was,
what?
The head of the department was the one hosting the orientation, and she goes, oh, okay, so you're undecided, and it's like, oh, okay, but it seems like whatever, this person over here like just wants to do painting. Like I'm the one that says, like, this is specifically what I want to do.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But okay.
Right. But it's not considered serious, so therefore, right. Yeah.
So I went through college, kind of got out of art, and this also, like, yep, this is good. I'm crossing my arms.
For the listening audience, Chris is crossing his arms.
This actually crosses over with the comics thing that I do now. I'd sort of gotten out of art because I decided I'll be an art minor. I'll be an English major instead. And I did some flyers for when we would play shows in college. But then my last semester there, or my next to last semester, my favorite professor, this guy Craig Fisher, who still teaches at Appalachian State, he told me, in the spring I'm going to do a graphic novels class.
Wow!
And I
wow!
I was, oh well, I'm actually supposed to, like, if I want to, I can graduate early, but if I, much to my parents' displeasure, if I just take the bare minimum of classes across 2
right,
then I can take this graphic novels class.
You're not necessarily majoring in college, but you're not exactly doing the most cost-effective route either.
Yeah, no, because when I moved out and went to college, I went to first summer session came, and I was like, oh, I'm going to summer session, and so I went to school from 98 through 2002, just taking summer sessions and taking, like, not a full course load every semester or whatever. But but anyway, so I took the graphic novels course, and through that learned about like Jaime Hernandez, who does Love and Rockets, Dan Klaus, who did Ghost World, and
who used to live over the hill from me in Oakland.
Really?
And I was always like, he does not seem like the kind of guy that would appreciate me, like, even speaking to him at all.
If you just walked up and were like, hey!
No, it's better or worse than that, I guess. Because what I would do is I was walking up the hill and he was walking down the hill, and I just, like, was looking at him and kind of gave him, like, a nod. Where it's like, I know who you are. And I smiled, and he looked really disturbed. But knowing Dan Klaus, I was like, I bet so many people just pester this guy like 1,000% of the time. And he just is a dude that seems to enjoy being anonymous.
Yeah.
Anyway, I never have had... that's the first time I've actually said that story aloud. So I hope you don't mind me interrupting to tell that story about how I did
No.
not talk to Dan Klaus, but I think you might appreciate it.
No, so it's through finding out about these artists that I started to through the graphic novels course. I started doing more art again, and because I'd sort of like I was doing like collage stuff, but I wasn't drawing a whole lot. And then for this class, we actually had to draw. So I started drawing more, and then deciding like, oh, I want to make comics, and then using more artwork for the posters that I was making for the shows. And then once I got out of college, I applied for a Xeric grant. They would give you $5,000 if you got it to put out to self-publish your own book.
Oh wow! Okay, cool.
Yeah, it was co-founded by Peter Laird, who from the Ninja Turtles fame.
Yeah.
I didn't get the Xeric grant, and so when I got the rejection letter and was working as a co-manager at Books A Million, and was really unhappy. Like I remember getting it and just like lighting a cigarette and opening a beer, and then just like putting the rejection letter on my refrigerator just so I could see it every day. Like, that's how bad you are. which
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
It stayed there for a long time.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, was it a mutant animal book? Because
it
was
that. Yeah. It was.
There's where you messed up. He's got to be a mutant animal. You see, we only take comics what have mutant animals in them, both kinds, mutants and animals.
But but then like Evan, our drummer's, no, I believe they were married at this point. Nicole, and Evan's wife, she let me know that there was an internship at a small club in Chapel Hill. They needed someone to design flyers for them. So I started doing that 5 nights a week, and then, or for 5 shows a week. And then after like 9 months, I stopped doing that. A guy from another club contacts me, says, hey, do you want to do posters for my club? I had started to do posters for them, but then like one of the first ones was a show presented by Cat's Cradle, which is ultimately who I wanted to do posters for. And the Frank Heath, who runs Cat's Cradle, met me at that show and said, hey, if you want to do any other posters for us, let me know. And so now I've done... I lost track, but I've done between 500 and 1,000 posters for Cat's Cradle since I think 2004. Screen printed ones. So
yeah, and that's, I mean, it's a heroic body of work, and so that's something that's, since Cat's Cradle was kind of formative for you musically, coming around to, being a part of it and being like almost like the visual identity. I almost said identitarian, but that wouldn't be right. Of the place, is that something where, like, did you feel that was an accomplishment? Was that something where, like, oh, that's good. That's a thing that's
sort of. It's a weird thing because it's like I don't know. I tend to not like to take credit for things, so it's a I don't know, like I'm doing stuff in service of the club and of the bands of the shows,
right? And
so I like half the time I don't put who it's by or anything, like posters by or anything like that, just because I just kind of don't think to, like, oh, who would care? It's a show, it's a cursive show, or it's of Montreal, like, and which the thing is that I've learned from people over the years, people do care. People
absolutely do care 100% of the time. Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's
I'm glad you said it, because I was about to read you the riot act on that. I was like,
well, and the thing is, I know that I care when it's other people, but when it's myself, yeah.
And I get that mindset, because the mindset is you're trying to be an ensemble player. You're not trying to make it about you.
Yeah.
You're not trying to say that the art that you created is more important than the thing that's being celebrated or advertised in that situation. And I get it, but it is also part of the it is part of the ensemble. It's part of the overall picture. It's part of the ecosystem. And especially I think that has it's been interesting seeing the evolution of rock posters and poster art as a thing over the past couple decades, because I feel like it's viewed differently now than it used to be. And I feel like it's more difficult for someone to be like a superstar in that genre now, a la like a Kozik or something along those lines.
Yes.
But by the same token, it can be appreciated by a wider audience as well. It's almost like the same thing that's happened with music, right? Like it's more difficult to, you're not going to ever have another next Nirvana because it's not going to be able to hit in that same way.
Right.
But you can have people, you can release something that you recorded on your phone, and like kids in Argentina can be listening to it tomorrow.
Well, and so that's the kind of weird thing about sorry, I got into screen printing.
I didn't. So screen printing.
I realized that I skipped over so I decided that I wanted to do screen printing. Learned how to. I took a quick class, and then sat with Ron Liberty one day and learned how to code a screen and that sort of thing, and then just started doing it on my own and doing it hit or miss, and in like my former brother-in-law's garage, and then as I moved from place to place, then just in a room in my house. But back to being an ensemble player, that's this weird thing where I was a production manager at a newspaper for 7.5 years, and I kind of like the idea of, you go in every week and you need to get a thing done by 2:00 on Tuesday, regardless of whatever else is going on. It needs to get done.
That's you're the end point of the
right and
of the task, is that it needs to be done by this time, and there's a finish line for it.
Yeah, and if I do a cover this week or someone else does a cover this week, if I do a spot illustration, it doesn't matter. Like, that needs to be done. And so I'm okay with that. I'm totally cool with that. Now, in my current job, working with the Splinter Group over in Carborough, one of the cool things that I got to do, which still hasn't totally sunk in, was there's this benefit compilation of
oh yeah, of course, that's fairly recent too.
It's 25 bands like Tiff Merritt, Superchunk, Southern Culture on the Skids, Mountain Goats doing these covers, and it's all to benefit Cat's Cradle. And I found out that last week or the week before that album that I did the cover art for through work, that ended up as #1 on the compilation Billboard chart.
It's charted.
Which it was like, oh, well, that's a weird thing. But I think
I wonder if there's a podcast about Billboard called Who Charted. Probably.
Yes, actually, I do know that there is. Yes, yeah.
Is there? Okay,
or there was at least. Yeah. But so I like that, and I feel like I'm more comfortable with doing that, with being part of a team, being part of an ensemble, and being able to sort of step back or kind of blend in to the scenery. But I'm realizing more and more as I've especially now that I haven't made a gig poster in 6 months or so, and I've been doing more with my comics, is that that is something that I have to be more out in front of, and I have to try and sell myself, which I have 20 years of experience of stepping back and not being that guy.
Specifically not doing it. And that's something that's also a genre of art that more than a lot of others, it favors the familiar name.
Mm-hmm.
And it favors the familiarity. I mean, there's a reason why, when people think of comics, they think of the superhero stuff. These characters that were made generations ago, and you still endure. But by the same token, there's a world of other comics that have nothing to do with that, and there is a legitimate market for. But even then, there's sort of like just like there's the superstars of indie rock or whatever. There's like the superstars of like the indie comic world.
Yeah.
And when you're doing something unique and different, I mean, is it an analog to music? Like, I mean, because I don't know. 'Cause I like the comics. I think they're great. I think they're awesome. But I'm just not steeped in that world anymore.
Yeah,
I don't know if is there an analog to it to like what's happening with music? Is it just is the democratization of order fulfillment like direct from artists like something that has been good and different? Like what?
Yeah, it's like I guess because
I'm talking about the days of even like Fantagraphics and things along those lines, right? Like where it's like you had like sort of like the Matador of comic books.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing is that those it feels like well like with everything like you were saying with bands and with poster art and all that, like it feels like the way that things have worked out is that it's expanded so much. There's so many outlets right now for artists for comics, but there's
a lot of them too.
Yeah.
There's just a lot.
Yeah, it just feels like it's a little tougher to get your name out there. So like I'm friends with a lot of people that are part of the comics industry in one way or another, whether it be that they're actually published artists or professionally published artists, like through a label or through a comics group, or they publish stuff themselves, right. And it's like I guess because I've been in a band for so long and I've been doing posters for as long as I have that. I guess like I make my books and would I like to have something I've done be published by Fantagraphics or Drawn Quarterly or Image? Like yes, absolutely, please, like let's do it. Okay,
take
great.
the money. Yeah. Someone asks you if you're a god, you say yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, I also like if it costs a couple $100 for me to if it's a couple $100 between I don't put out a book or I put out a book and I'm happy to put out the book and I don't sell that many, like I'm cool just like going in for a couple $100 just to get it out there so that because like ultimately I know that like through art, through talking to people about like I've talked to you about like our struggles with depression and stuff like that. Like a lot of my work has to deal with that to just get more stuff out there because it's not for everybody, but it's probably for somebody, I guess.
It's for the people that it's for, and it allows you to move forward at the same time, while not like discounting the work itself, but have it be like I always think of the representation of space-time in Donnie Darko, where it like trails behind it.
Yeah.
And I mean, because I guess we're dancing around it because there's some heavy topics that are illustrated and told in these stories, and if you're someone that only knows from Spider-Man or something, and you were to pick it up, you'd be like, "What the Sam Hill am I reading?"
Yeah. It's not it's a little less action, more.
When's the Batman come in?
Yeah, it's a little more exploring my issues with bipolar depression.
Right. Which
it's like Spider-Man if he doesn't swing around or do anything, and he's just sad all the time.
But just the parts where he's feeling really down.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's just sitting in his room going, Uncle Ben was right. It's just those scenes all the time. He goes out and he's like, why should I try to swing from anything?
Yeah, why swing at all? But, yeah, I mean, it's... the topics are heavy. Like it's but they're real. Like, they're coming out from a very real place, and it works because the art's good. And it's worth reading, but it's definitely, it's not light fare.
Yeah.
And so when you're dredging that up, like, is that something that comes easy? Is that something that you kind of labor over, like a bit of column A, bit of column B? Like, what's...
Yeah, it's like, so like the most recent book that I did is this book called Artifact, and it's about, the idea was that it's an artist who can go inside the screen prints that they make, which, those words coming out of my face, it feels like, wow, that's a little on the nose. But
well,
anyway.
I mean, take on me, It's like...
yes, exactly. That's
basically
where
like take on me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If you've seen that video, then you know the story.
It's basically like, you don't need to know anything else. Just buy it. That's what it's about.
But instead, the woman sitting in the booth, she's like, "Should I really go? No, I'm depressed." And then no, so yeah, it started with that it was, the idea was that that this person, they could go into their prints, but from there I thought more about, like, well, what kind of comes from that? Why would someone want to be able to do that?
Want that escape, yeah.
Right. And what does that mean when someone does want that escape, or feels like they need that escape? And then also exploring with myself, like, well, if I could change something about my life, because there's things that I wish for in my life, but is it something that I really want? And so yeah, I was just trying to explore that, and then the story came pretty easily from there. So
yeah, and I think there's kind of, there's something of a through line through a lot of it, that there's sort of a, ennui is not the correct word, but there's sort of like a resting, resigned sadness through a lot of the work, that it's definitely, it seems like it's coming from an authoritative place, but it's, I mean, do you find that, and some it's not all explicitly like, hey guys, here's the thing, you got the one with the girl and the robot and things along those lines, but it does seem like it's a bit of a through line through a lot of the graphic novels, that is it just like that's what comes out, or did you have like an idea of wanting to tell these kinds of stories, or what? How did that?
Some of it's just to. So I've got the. I did a 3 graphic novel series, Low Soft Shoulder, which dealt a little more directly with dealing or trying to process my my bipolar stuff, and so like I went through a very abrupt breakup a couple of years ago, which sent me down a very dark path, and then the good part was that, like, so here's where the crossing arms thing comes back, that it was through watching stuff like the Cartoonist Kayfabe YouTube channel with these artists Ed Pisker and Jim Rugg, that they started exploring different types of comics, and I realized, like, oh wait, I could make comics to kind of try and process this stuff, and so it was kind of doing that. The Low Soft Shoulder was trying to process a lot of that. The Artifact is processing some like lingering feelings or other things that I've thought as a result. But then I've also got another whole series that I started called Pilot, that's about a skeleton and his talking triceratops, and they're wandering what seems to be a post-apocalyptic landscape and trying to navigate that. And that's been more of a, like, okay, I can do the really heavy stuff, but then I can go back over to Pilot, and I can have, Pilot the pilot series can have some jokes and
Yeah, hey y'all, it isn't a bummer all the time. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I try to like balance it out as much as I can. So
We kind of walked past it, but when you think back to that Peter Laird letter, I mean, you said you put it in the refrigerator and to kind of focus on it. Like, do you feel like you're doing the work that you want to do? Can you enjoy what success that you've carved out for yourself? Because for me, it seems like you've someone that not only has their own voice, but you have an articulate vision. You know damn well that it's going to be whoever it's for, and you're not too tied up in any of like the nonsense that comes with putting things out there as pearls before swine. That said, this is the world we live in. It's a capitalistic world.
Mm-hmm.
Things are considered objective successes or failures based on capitalistic metrics, things along those lines. How much do you think about literally any of that in terms of your art, and then also bring it around to in terms of your music, just everything else, just all around?
So starting with the music, the music, since that is not on me, that's a sack of potatoes that three of us are carrying. Someone call it an albatross. Someone might call it I don't know.
Sack of potatoes is good because potatoes are actually very useful as a foodstuff.
Yes, so there you go.
You got to put some effort into it. So,
but that's something that's carried by the three of us, and I think we sort of we kind of came to a decision years ago that we're happy doing what we're doing. We're likely never going to be in a Hummer ad. But that's okay, and we're okay with that because we're happy playing shows when we can play shows, getting to see our friends, getting to play shows with our friends, getting to put out records. We all three of us have jobs, and we can afford to put out a record every couple of years if we have to do it ourselves. So that we're okay with that. In terms of my art and doing comics and stuff, because I'm medicated and stuff, but on my bad days, it'll kind of, I'll think about I didn't sell that many books, or I didn't sell this, or, if I go to a convention and I don't have a good day, then it's like, oh, well, and that'll kind of weigh heavy on me. But I don't have as many bad days anymore. Surprisingly, through this whole pandemic thing, I've had relatively few bad days, quote unquote. But yeah, on the good days, I think about like we talked about, that I'm getting it out there, and I know that when I get it into someone's hand, one of my books into someone's hands, and they reach out to me, and they're like, "I'm really glad that you wrote this because this is something that I feel," and it's like, "Oh, cool. Well, you know what? The cost of that book just got erased for me."
Because you've expressed the inexpressible to somebody and made a connection, right?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. And I know that that's not going to happen all the time or anything like that. But it's worth it to me right now, to coming from a place where I can't afford to put the books out and to continue doing it. I'm happy to keep that up. And I mean, I haven't had I guess, in terms of the capitalist nature of stuff, I haven't been a success, but I also realized that I started making stuff. The first thing that I did was I made a zine for the Raleigh Comic Con in March of 2019. And since then, I have made, including mini comics that I've made with my son, I have made 14 zines and graphic novels since then. So yeah, like 5 full graphic novels and then several zines and several mini comics. Like that's a year and a half. So
Yes, suck it, Peter Laird. What have you done lately?
Well, and that's the thing too, is that the like I was telling my friend the other day that I feel like that professor that I took the graphic novels class with, that I was telling him that I've been doing screen printing for so long, I've been doing posters, and despite that, like I finally feel like with doing the comics, I'm doing what I was supposed to be doing. And so that's
nice.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know,
in a nonsensical world when things make sense, that's a nice thing. You know?
I mean, it would have been nice if like I felt that way when Adrian Tomina was doing like Optic Nerve back 20 years ago. You know, it would have been nice if it hit back then instead of when I was 40. But you know, it's okay.
Yeah, well, the wish in one hand,
exactly.
the other, right? I wonder, real quick, can you speak a little bit about the PRF and your path into it? That's how I know you. A lot of people that listen to the show are familiar with it, especially some of the newer listeners are less so. So if you could maybe just articulate your path into it, describe that community, so forth, that would be lovely.
I think is terrorist group the no
officially designated as a book club, but
it's on
characterizes
a watch list.
Right.
No, I found out
it's downgraded from a cult recently. So
no, I found out about the PRF because Evan, our drummer, had gone to. Or he had been on the Electrical Audio Forum and found out about the barbecue, the 2009 barbecue. And after he found out about that, he came to practice and he said, "Hey, so we're going to do this thing next year. I'm just letting you know in advance. This is going to happen." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So
it was phrased like that, like, "Here's a thing that's going to happen, and I'm letting you know about." Okay, all right, cool.
And so we, in that time, we got on the forum. We started to see what was going on. We brought a pork shoulder up from North Carolina, and the thing was, it's one of those. I'm gonna try not to get emotional. It was a turning point. I was at that point, like I got married in 2005. My son Seamus was born in 2008, and shortly thereafter, I got separated and divorced. So the first barbecue we go to is in 2010. And I was in this really weird period where like things didn't feel like I felt like I had done everything that I wanted to do, and then it all just kind of fell apart. And so pretty much I walked into the what we referred to as drug church, and it was a room full of people that didn't know who I was but wanted to meet me. And have like very quickly grew into people that I could say that I love with all my heart, and it was really weird to kind of come into that like I don't know, to just encounter
most surprises are not pleasant.
No. Well, and that's the thing, is that like there's and it was just little interactions that like if we finished playing and this guy says, "Hey, I'm gonna help you move all your stuff out," and we're like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks." And on the way back in to grab something else, I said, "Oh, hey, thanks, I'm Chris." And he goes, "Hi, I'm John Hasty from Nonagon." And I was like, "I know who Nonagon is. Oh my God, this is John from Nonagon."
Yeah.
And John and Christy, Christy is John's wife. Like they're some of my closest friends, and I love them dearly. And like it was just little things like that just it's the PRF is an amazing place, and my life has been changed for the better through meeting people like John, or meeting people like Randall or Ann and you, Dixie, DJ, Josh, like Chris and Jordana. Like I'm naming people, but feeling bad that I'm not naming other people like Josh Hensley and Garth.
Right.
But no,
I see you.
But no, it's I think that we're very lucky. It's a bunch of adults with their own opinions. Things don't always go like the way that we would like necessarily. We're going to have different opinions, but I think that we're better for having this community. So.
Well, very good. So, Chris, we're going to be closing out this episode shortly because your new season of The Operative is going to be premiering.
Oh,
so
was I supposed to upload that? Oh man,
you got time.
I haven't finished editing, so I'm
man.
sorry.
I tell you what, brother, that would be more advanced time than I uploaded my 200th episode. Like messaging Music Off was like, "Fuck, I just hit send," and it was like 3 minutes before. No, but it's been a long time coming. I'm actually kind of embarrassed I haven't had you on before, but I'm glad we got to do it. I'm glad we got to do it in a way that we could just showcase this cool show that you do, because I don't feel like enough people know about it, and I'm happy to check out this next season. You know the show, this show, I generally close things out by asking people the question, why do you do what you do?
Oh, man, I was all prepared. I was like standing up. Why? Why do I do what I do? Oh God! Like it's not like I didn't know this was coming. I don't. I have a. It. I think in part because, and you and I feel like have talked about this, is that I have some sort of maybe sick drive in me that I need to, like, it's like I see the finish line, and before I get there, I've got to fill up that card with as much as I can, and so I gotta keep doing more and more, and it to some degree I realize that it's trying to fill some sort of void that I have in my life, that something that is lacking, but I also get a lot of fulfillment out of it, and I'm trying to spread some sort of, I don't know, joy, acceptance, understanding, something to maybe help bring people together in some way. And I don't know that I'm always good at that. I admit that I could be better at times, but yeah. So I feel like if that's my goal, just spread like that sort of thing, the more that I can do to help that, the better. Did that answer it?
That answered it very well. Thank you.
Okay.
I mean, there's no correct answer, but I feel like that's very articulate, and that's a very noble goal. And I'd venture to say that you are well on your way to accomplishing it. And I'm glad to know you. I'm glad to have you on the show, and I'm glad for the music, the art, the comics, all of it. Plasticflamepress.com.
No,
plasticflame.com, plasticflamepress.square .science.
Or yeah, if you go to
want it.
plasticflame.com, then it takes you. And then and there's also, because I'm supposed to plug it, covercharge.bandcamp.com is the Cat's Cradle benefit album.
Oh, fantastic! So, and that's the one that it's charting on Billboard. So if you want to be part of history,
yeah, if you
can be on the wrong side or the right side of history.
Yeah, maybe I can get a Grammy and I can find a place like that would be weird.
And of course, the Operative on Radio Nope second season premiere begins in 30 seconds. You can find that on Facebook. Podcasted later. Did we miss anything? maplestave.bandcamp.com.
Yep. I think that's it.
Right on. Thanks so much, brother.
I love you, buddy.
Love you too.
All right, there he goes. So let's listen now to a song by Chris's band, Maplestave. Stave, Thunder Kiss 85. That's Atom 10, Protons and Electrons series. Seismic Wave 024. Some other band on the other side. I don't know. Not familiar. Haven't checked it out. Well, hey. Here we go.
Is this thing on?
Chris Williams. Plasticflamepress. Maplestave. The Operative. He is on the internet. Plasticflame.com. I don't know if there's a Maplestave website. I don't think there is. They have a Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Maplestave.bandcamp.com is probably the best place to find their stuff. Great band, underrated. I've always dug those dudes. The Operative. The Operative is on Radio Nope. Tuesdays, 9:30 Eastern. RadioNope.com. Find it wherever you find your podcasts. You can download it to your personal device.
As we come to the close of our broadcast day.
What a cool guy. Love that dude. Name of the show is Conan Neutron's Protonic Reversal. This has been the 201st episode of it.
Signing off, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea.
The show airs on Radio Nope as well, usually Thursdays, 8 Eastern, 7 Central, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific. RadioNope.com. Say yes to Nope. Also available as a podcast.
50,000 watts of power.
Available wherever podcasts are found. ProtonicReversal.com for the archives as well.
Ionize the air.
Patreon.com/Protonic Reversal to hear the episodes sooner. $1 a month will get you there, but the show is free always.
This microphone turns sound into electricity.
Thanks everybody sharing the episodes around. It helps people find out about the show, and
Can you hear me now?
that's great.
Out on
Stay safe.
128, it's dark and lonely.
Take it easy.
I got my radio on. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Welcome to my top 10. I'd like to thank our sponsor. But we haven't got a sponsor. Not if you were the last man on Earth. She was prepared to prove it. This one goes out to a special girl. But there is no special girl! It's the end of radio. The last announcer plays the last record. The last what? Leaves the transmitter. Circles the globe in search of a listener. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Really broadcasting if there's no one there to receive. It's the end of radio. As we come to the close of our broadcast day, my radio on. Can you hear me now?
Thank you.